and we are here to talk about real life conversations that should be happening every day that really don't happen. So we're here to elevate, to evolve, which is elevate our awareness and our thinking in order to evolve and be our best selves. Today I have with me Miss Rasathi Rasaya up in the top, and down at the bottom I have Miss Tiffany Polar that are joining us for the conversation. How are you ladies doing today?
We're
Doing good,
good.
doing good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm ready to get to going, to get talking. Today we are talking about saying something empowering. So, last week we talked about communication and we talked about effective communication. So, we are going to be continuing that for the rest of this month, talking about different topics that pertain to effectively communicating with other humans in order to be uplifting and empowering, and also to be self-aware and meet your best self, right? Actually get to your best self and start living from a place of positivity instead of a place of negativity. We've had a lot of that happening this past year. The world has been going through, so we really want to focus on the awareness of what's going on around us and the awareness that everybody's not perfect, not even you. Yes, you, I'm talking to you. If I said you and you thought about it, I'm talking to you.
I have to
We
admit, I thought
are
about it,
not
Kamisha.
perfect. Everybody's human. You know what I mean? So everybody's going through something. And instead of beating people down, let's lift people up, including our own selves. Because when you are beating somebody down, you are not making yourself feel good. You are also bringing that negativity into your space when you're beating someone else down. So we're talking about saying something empowering because words matter. No matter what you think, words actually matter. So, before we get started, I just want to give a little background on why this topic was selected so that everybody is on the same page, including the viewers, right? So, one of the reasons that I chose this is because I'm constantly thinking about how people are speaking to someone else, how people are interacting and dealing with other people, not realizing that what they say and what they do affects the other person, whether it's positively or negatively. It's affecting them in some way. And a lot of times we're not aware and we don't realize that the words we say have a major impact on people, no matter how big or small. We always are aware that we're saying something, but not the effect of what we're saying, right? So one of the things that came up for me, I've been watching a show on TV. Um, I'm a reality TV watcher. I'm not afraid to say it. I like to watch it because I like to see how people act on TV when the cameras are there versus what you see outside of TV, and then what they discuss on, oh, we talked about this on camera, but when we're off camera, you don't do that. I like to watch that stuff because
Okay.
I'm heavy into the way people act and think. So I watch a lot of reality TV, and one of the shows that I've been watching is called Encore. It's about 9 women that ended up in a house together from older girl groups. So they brought members from those girl groups, put them together in a house,
Oh,
9 of
cool.
them, together in a house, and they were supposed to perform at the end. And they had a lot of things going on with 9 women in the house from different
Awesome.
girl groups. They felt like some of them weren't at their best potential, so they were trying to kind of push them out, give them small parts, and still have them part of the group. So, long story short, if you haven't watched this, I'm sorry, spoiler alert.
I'm writing it
If you were
down.
planning on watching it, it ended up with 5 women by the time it got to the end. And so one of those women, there's a song that they have called Say Something. So that's hence where I got the title from. They have a song called Say Something, and it's talking about being uplifting and empowering. And it talks about all of the women that have gone through things and, be there for the other women, right? And one of the ladies from the group, she said that all growing up, this song was um, very relatable to her, and it was one of her favorite songs because she experienced so much growing up, and people always having something to say and focusing on all the negativity. And then one of the things she said while she was talking about it was, people are always beating you down for what you don't have, but who's lifting me up for what I do have? And I was like, oh my God, that's a word. I immediately wrote it down because I'm like, it's so true. And I think about it all the time. I don't know why it runs across my mind all the time, but this actual topic really runs across my mind a lot. How people are so consistent, very consistent in giving their 2 cents to beat somebody down or talk about what somebody doesn't have or what they're doing wrong. But what about the other side? What about uplifting them for what they're doing right and what they do have and going on? Instead of focusing on the negativity, it's so draining to me just seeing all the negativity. Now, when you're a part of negativity, that's even more draining. But just seeing it, and I know I talked a little bit to Tiffany yesterday about this, but one of the things is when being in these groups and when people really ask for suggestions and people only come with negativity and beat them down for the questions they're asking. And I said, Tiffany, you don't know how they were brought up, what type of example they had. They may just really need help. They may not understand. And they're reaching out for help. And instead of help, you're telling them how bad they are. And, why'd you ask such a stupid question? And those types of things when you're supposed to be around to be uplifting. And I always, think about those people that just have to say something negative. If you have something negative to say, why even say it? And they're like, well, she shouldn't have asked. And I'm like, wow, really? And the thoughts that go through my mind at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say anything because I really just always want to say something because it doesn't make sense. Like, who are you? Like, who are you to say anything negative to somebody else? Like, what place in their life gives you just any inkling that you have?
This is why people are scared to ask for help, right? Because they don't know what kind of reaction they'll get from somebody.
Yeah, like what gives you the right to say it? Just because they posted and asked the question, you think you have the right now to just beat them down? No way. No, ma'am.
Well, unfortunately,
you said this has been on your heart a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, unfortunately, there's a lot of miserable people out there right now that are bitter and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is true, I think, that sometimes misery loves company. And some people just don't know how to offer constructive criticism or feedback or even to be positive. Like, I try to celebrate people in their wins because I want people to celebrate me when I'm winning.
Absolutely. And you said, Kamisha, that this has been on your heart, like it comes up every so often. You keep thinking about it, it keeps popping up. Why can't people be more constructive or like uplifting, right? It's been very relevant this month, I feel like, because I came across a post the other day that said, when you pass away, you have how many, 6 to 8 pallbearers. But imagine if you had 6 to 8 people that lift you up while you were alive, like how much more could you accomplish, right?
Yes,
so yes. It's been popping up. This is like a theme that's been recurring this month for some reason. I'm not sure. But it comes back to, you might remember what people do, you might remember what people say, but you definitely will never forget how they made you feel. So yes. I feel like we need to do our best to encourage people to be themselves, encourage them to speak up, even if they don't know. You may know more than they do, and that's why they come to you for help. So why not help them a little bit, teach them a little of what you know, so that they can, they can move forward in the world too. There's no, you don't lose anything by sharing your light, right?
Yes. It baffles me because it takes so much more energy to be negative than it does to be positive.
But and they don't see it that way.
Yeah, and it takes so much more energy to even respond than to just move on. So I'm like, what is that trigger that's causing them to say, oh my God, I got to say something right here. And I have to say the negativity. Oh, I'm just being real. No, you're just being real stupid. How about that?
That adjective is unnecessary though.
Like, that's what the thoughts that go through my mind. I'm so sorry, but those are the thoughts that go through my mind. Like, why do you have to come here and be so ignorant? Like, and say these things to people when you don't know what your words are going to do to affect them. When they leave, that space, after seeing all that negativity from you, you don't know what that's going to do to them. So if you don't have anything like constructive to say, why not just move on? Why feel that you must, like you absolutely must get your fingers to moving and say something negative to someone who's just saying, hey, like this is what's going on with me. I would really love some suggestions. Can you help me out? To be so negative. Like I sometimes I think like, man, that is a question. Why are they asking that to these people they don't know when these people are about to go in? Like you just know that the people are about to be really negative, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important to me to create safe spaces and safe environments and communities where women can actually come and ask a question and not be beat down for it. So like this is so important to me because when I see it, like it really bothers me. Like I don't know if you all notice, but it really bothers me. Like I don't know the people, but I wanna offer a helping hand. Like I don't want to beat them down because again, who am I to judge them? I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what's happening in their life, what's happened in their prior life, what they're working on, what their comprehension is, their comprehension level, what their emotional level is, right? Their emotional intelligence. We don't know what's happening with them. So to just automatically beat them down instead of try to get some further understanding, which most people don't do because they're not even aware that what they're doing is so negative in beating people down. So one of the things though that she said in the statement was about lifting her up for what she does have instead of beating her down for what she doesn't have. Right. Have you all had any of those type of experiences where you do so many things, you know, right, and you're trying to get yourself together and you're like moving forward, but people only focus on what you don't have and what you're not doing right?
Oh, absolutely. If anyone says they haven't, they're lying, because if you go through school, they'll give you your marks after a test and they focus on all the mistakes you made, not what you got right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. They talk about yeah, that's good. I never even thought about that. I never even thought about
from young, right? From the time you start going to school, they focus on everything you did wrong. They don't champion, they don't celebrate the things that you get right. So you might get like 98 out of 100. They're wondering about the 2 points that you got wrong.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Tiffany, have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's the people that are closest to you too. Like, you know, in my family, it's not that they don't celebrate me, but I did have an incident a few years ago where someone very close to me like criticized me very heavily. And the words that were like coming out of her mouth, like if I weren't a stronger person to like just say, okay, you know what, you don't actually mean what you're saying. You don't really know what you're saying. And it's all misdirected, you know, anger, then something like that would have just kind of crushed me, you know. But thank God that wasn't the space that I was in. I mean, I thought about what was said and I thought about how rude it was and how it was hurtful. But in the end, I just kind of shrugged it off and I said, okay, those words aren't for me. And then also I set a boundary too, because I'm like, okay, well, you spoke those words. And even though we're close, we're family or whatever, you need a timeout. You don't get to keep talking to me like that. So, you know, the space that I was in, that was it.
But I feel like that's important too, Tiffany, because if you don't set that boundary, you don't teach them how to treat you. If you let it go, you don't say nothing. It kind of like, it's almost like you're allowing it to happen. And so they think it's okay. They keep on going. They keep, you know, unless you check it when it happens, they're gonna think it's all right. It's not gonna phase you at all. So unfortunately, people and their behavior sometimes makes you have to say something. And it comes across as how you tell them. If you were to tell them in an angry tone because, you know, you absorb some of that negativity from them, it's going to become a pissing contest on who's right, who's wrong, who's the best, who's not the best. You know, how it becomes like a disagreement, an argument. We're trying to prove the other one's less than you are or whatever. But because you said you're in a better space, you're probably able to tell them in such a way that, yo, that was uncalled for and I don't appreciate it. Please don't do that again. So when you put them in timeout, it's not so much, they don't probably feel like it's a punishment, but they probably had to like, oh God, yeah, it really did come out my mouth like that.
I mean,
Is
no,
that,
I did tell them that I didn't appreciate the words that they were
yeah.
speaking, and I did
Mm.
let them sit for about a year before we came back and had another conversation. That was just how I handled that process.
But sometimes that's
Because
how it has to be handled.
I am very careful about what I say to people and how I say it, you know? So I don't give people a
Yeah,
free
and
pass.
I think that takes a lot of awareness because I
Yeah.
remember there was a time with me where since I'm very direct, I would say things, but then later think about it and then have to come back to it. But now I'm hyper aware of my words because I notice by being direct, sometimes it can feel like an attack when really I'm just not one to like go around in circles. Like I just want to get direct and straight to the point. But I noticed that people keep you in the same spot that they had you in whenever they had an issue with you or they felt a way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about people building you up for what you do have or what you've done right versus what you don't have and what you've done wrong. I feel like people may sit in that moment a lot instead of moving past it. You may have evolved 4, 5, 6 times over, changed over the years, and become a completely different person. And they don't even realize it because they're stuck on the past and things that have happened in the past and things that have come up in the past instead of realizing who you are now. And
Right.
I know sometimes it has to do with the actual relationship and if they've evolved along with you or not. And I find that sometimes when we're talking about beating people down or lifting people up, that you have to make the choice of who is and who isn't. And what I mean by who is and who isn't, I mean who you're going to have around in your life, in your circle, and who you're not. And being okay with being able to say, if we can't effectively communicate, if we can't be effective in each other's lives, if we can't lift each other up, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Why are we here? And be able to say, okay, I'm just going to have to let that person go, right? Like out of your life in all areas, and personally, professionally, business wise, not picking up clients that are toxic and negative, to how you want to build your business, being able to choose and say, okay, no, like I have to protect my peace of mind and my sanity, from those type of people at all costs. And when we're talking about words mattering, sometimes we have words filtering in that matter that we don't even notice are coming in because we have negativity around us, whether it's on TV, definitely on the internet as we're scrolling our phones or getting lost in the internet, and from other people around us. Like it may not even be directed at us, but that energy coming in from those words because we hear it, like it's coming in our ears, going to
Yeah.
our brain, right? So it's still affecting us. And I think that a lot of the times you have to change your environment, and that includes people and the place that you're in order to move forward and get past other people's word mattering when you're trying to better yourself. And when we're talking about bettering yourself, we're talking about becoming your absolute best self, right? Being able to be aware, being able to think on an elevated level versus just settling for whatever anybody else has to say and do when it comes to who you are.
Well, unfortunately, what I'm learning is that my circle is relatively small right now, smaller than I would like for it to be, because I like to be transparent. I like to, have deep conversations and, really talk about things. And sometimes when you're having those conversations and you're speaking the truth, it's not always something that's pretty, but, you know, people don't necessarily want to have those conversations back. Sometimes people aren't willing to go that deep, or they're not willing to do the introspection And then it's like, well, okay, well, if I can't really share who I am with you, and if you can't share back with me, then we're not really having conversation. We're not really, I don't know what we're doing.
You're putting up with each other is what it sounds like.
That kind of sums it up. You're just existing with each other, you know.
Yeah.
That definitely is what that sounds like. And I get what you're saying too, because I have a really small circle of people that I talk to and that I can tolerate and deal with. And my really close circle, I could talk to them on a daily basis because we have similar thought patterns. And honestly, it's not even people that I have known, you know, from childhood. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like you have those childhood friends, but as I've gotten older and evolved and wanted to move in different areas of my life, I found that, you know, I had a different mindset that they didn't have. And so it was hard for us to exist together and have conversations because my thought pattern is focused on the future, making an impact, creating legacy, treating people right, helping people. Like that's where I'm focused. So I find that when you have people in your life where they only think about what's not going right and they don't think about what is going right, that it's hard to have conversations with them and to not have to have those uncomfortable negative conversations that sometimes it's just time to depart from that person until you guys are either on the same level again or you can have a conversation that feels good, right?
But I
Because I don't
noticed you
have
said,
space.
I noticed you said like uncomfortable, negative conversation, but I just want to point out too that you can have uncomfortable, positive conversations too. Like, you know,
Oh yeah, you definitely can. So those are the good conversations where it may be uncomfortable, but it's positive and you're moving forward. But when you're talking about a person who is still at that point in their life where they can only see the negative, they can only see what's not right, you can't have an uncomfortable positive conversation. It just keeps getting more negative and more negative and more negative as the conversation goes on. And as we talked about, words matter, and I'm not willing to relinquish my peace to try to solve that issue that can't be solved in that moment because they can't even hear what you're saying. They're not open and receptive to the conversation. So if they're not open and receptive to the conversation, there is no conversation to be had. You're just talking to a brick wall. So instead of, you know, releasing and relinquishing your peace in order to try to bang a nail, I was gonna say a nail into a wall that is not working because we were like putting up curtains and it was giving us a hard time. But no, just trying to get words through to someone who's not open, it just doesn't work. You have to either wait until they're ready to receive the information or that there's a way that you can deliver that information to where they understand. But when they're not receptive to it, it's just no way to go. But instead of, you know, being the bad news bearer, you know, and always telling them what they're doing wrong, give them time to realize it and understand it so that when you come to that conversation, they're able to have a more positive conversation.
And honestly, I think that's what Tiffany did when you said you left that person be for about a year. Sometimes that's what it takes. You got to remove your energy from their presence so they feel, you know, what it would be like if they lost you, so they could you really, you know, okay, now we need to sit down and have a conversation about why this happened so it doesn't happen again because I love you, I want you in my life. You know, I'm not willing to put this relationship at risk. But people don't always understand. For me, I realized, I mean, we're all moms here. I realized when I'm trying to teach my daughter how quickly her energy like dissipates, depending on how I'm trying to correct her or help her with her homework or whatever. So she's been writing compositions lately and it's in a second language, right? So she's doing her best. She's not the greatest at it. It's her first couple of times. So she's doing good. And every time it's like a little bit longer than it was before. But she gets really downhearted the more corrections that there are. So I have to remind her, hey, but you know, you did so much more than you did last time, and your vocabulary is getting better, and you're able to understand this better. Your format, you know, is becoming like a specific pattern, so it's easier for you to do these things. And if I can see it in children, can you imagine what that would be like for adults? Like, we have a little child inside of us still that really wants a little bit of approval to make sure that you see more than just my mistakes. I have people around me that sometimes when I go to ask them for help, they're real quick to be like, well, go look it up. I know I could look it up, but I'm trying to maintain this relationship. I want to ask you because you have experience with this. I want to have more conversations with you. But people don't realize that the way they speak and the way we feel around them, it really controls how often we come back to you. Like, if I want to be in your presence, I want to be in the presence of people that I feel good around, not people that I always have to like be worried about. I feel like chaotic or in controversy with myself. I'm second guessing myself all of a sudden. I don't want to be around people like that. That takes a lot of energy for me because it took me this long to build myself to a place where I feel good about everything that I've done so far. So that's where your circle is small for a reason. That's why we choose our words carefully, because we've been on the receiving end so often. And I feel like people really need to watch how other people around them feel about being around them, because it is the words, it is the behaviors, it is the way you treat each other that really makes or breaks a community or family.
Yes,
And
and
the
I love
wrong
that you
words.
said community and family, because I feel like we receive a lot of it from those closest to us, right?
Yeah.
Um, Aside from the internet trolls that sit there and wait for a question to go up so that they can absolutely positively wring that person's neck, right, by saying the most hideous thing they can think of. Aside from those people that's their life to sit there and do that, the people closest to us do it sometimes out of love, sometimes out of spite, right? And when I say sometimes out of love, they think they're helping when they're
Yeah.
really not helping. And when you try to explain to them how they're not helping, they get defensive instead of listening. So it's that type of give and take, right? Where you're like, I want to explain to you how your words are affecting me, but when I try to explain to you how your words are affecting me, you turn it around on me and you get defensive and talk about ungrateful, or talk about, what are some of the other words they throw out?
Disrespectful.
Ungrateful, disrespectful, depending on who's giving you the information, right? That's a big one.
But it comes from a lot of comments that start off with the phrase, um, um, stuff like, this is common sense. Why wouldn't you do it this way? Or I don't understand why you didn't blah, 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 blah. Why couldn't you figure this out? Like, all of those comments, there is something in there that they're trying to relay that is meant to be positive, but all those extra words in between kind of like disrupt the entire message. Almost like, no offense, but yeah, okay, I know you're going to offend me next. You know, like, I don't mean
No
it so,
offense, but yeah.
just joking. No, say what you mean, but we don't think about how we phrase things at all until it is almost too late, until we've already upset somebody.
Yeah. Oh, that is so important. And what you said about all the words in between, right? And that's why I feel like most of the time I try to get directly to the point instead of, I feel like those filler words is because they don't know exactly what to say. And
Yes.
so they're saying what's in their mind, but they're not conveying the message in the most positive way, but they're not realizing that, okay, look at what you just said, and you expect me to accept what you just said, but it came off negatively. When sometimes people don't mean to be negative, but most of the time, depending on who it is, they know who you are and they know what's going to trigger you. And
Yeah.
they say it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're just tuning in right now, we have been talking about saying something empowering, right? So when we talk about say something, it's coming here in two different ways. Saying something empowering because your words matter, and saying something to help uplift others. And when I come from a place of saying something, when you see something happening in someone that needs help, and you can rectify the situation or offer a solution that's positive, and you see so many other negative comments, negative solutions, and you have something positive that you can offer, go ahead and offer it. Your one positive comment can be that thing that they needed to get them out of all the rest of the negative garbage that just came across their timeline, that just came into their inbox, that just came into their comments, when all they wanted was some simple help, a simple suggestion. And even though people are always saying, well, they shouldn't have put it on the internet, or they shouldn't have put it in a public space. Well, maybe they didn't have someone privately to ask. And so they took the chance to say, maybe there are some good people out there who, if I put this out on the internet and ask a question, somebody just might have some empowering, some uplifting, some positive words, a solution for me, and I can get out of this place that I'm in. I always talk about sharing your gift, but what we get is a lot of people sharing their not so 2 cents, right? It's not even worth that much. That's what they're sharing, instead of coming from a place of kindness and positivity. And I feel like if more people came from a place of kindness, positivity and kindness, that we could really go far, especially as women, just reaching out and holding each other up. Because a lot of times that is not what happens. You can get into a community where they talk about it, but those are those same communities where you see all those negative comments, where they're saying we're coming together to be supportive, positive, hold each other up. But then that's where you see all the negative comments and like, oh, we're all adults here. Yes, we're all adults, but we came here because we wanted a positive space. But now we're here and we see it just like everything else.
So
I feel like people move different. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Well, just what you said, Kamisha, kind of reminds me that sometimes we have to be better stewards of our vulnerability. Like it reminds me, I think it was Brene Brown that had something where she was talking about vulnerability. And she mentioned something to the effect of like, kind of being careful who you share those vulnerable moments with, because everybody is not qualified or going to be very careful or take it as seriously as they should when they're offering you their 2 cents. So, yeah, I mean, even though we might need to get some help and we may hope that, there's somebody out there that's going to be good. And while there are a lot of good people that are out there, you do run the risk of having somebody that is just careless all around and will treat your vulnerable moment like just whatever.
Yeah. But I feel like it's something else that, Kamisha mentioned, that when you finally put it up in a public space, you got to realize that these people, when they finally put it up there, it's because you don't know how many people they've asked privately before they finally put it up on a public platform. You don't know exactly what their circle looks like or what their living situation looks like. Maybe they don't have anyone they can trust. Maybe they're in a situation where they can't say anything. They can't even they don't have a space to show their emotions at home because everybody else is too full of themselves. They don't have space to do it. You know what I mean? But in that regard, I feel like if we were to treat each other like we were all temporary, I think it would be different. Like, how some people are really sweet to strangers, but they're just terrible to their loved ones in their house. I think if we take a step back, a lot of times we feel safe enough to do those things because we know those people aren't going anywhere. They could choose to, but we're trusting, your blood. You're still be my brother in 10 years. You're not really going anywhere. But if we were to think about it like, I have a limited amount of time, I don't know when I'll see this person next. I want every interaction to be my very best possible, right? I think we would speak to each other differently. I think we take a lot of people for granted around us. I know there are people in my life that I take for granted sometimes, and I should make that relationship stronger, but I don't, because I feel safe enough to act up sometimes.
Or if you just treat people that they're as important as you are, with the same amount of respect that you want people to treat you with, realizing that nobody is higher than the other, like I think that would also go a long way in how you interact with people.
Absolutely.
But like Kamisha, you were mentioning like the comments and the trolls that come out there on social media and stuff like that. Like I feel like people just type whatever they want to type sometimes, and it's because they're hiding behind the social media, the screen or whatever, and they say things to you that they never really say to you if they were right there in your face.
They would never say it in person. Yep.
Having a conversation with you, and maybe even different than if they were having a conversation with you on the phone. Like people just get really bold and brave sometimes when they're typing those comments behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, no, that is absolutely true. But I feel like just because, they're behind the scenes, I feel like there are also those people that's just who they are. They just don't know how to be positive. They just don't know how to show kindness to people they don't know, right? They'll just look at something and be like, "Oh my God, that's so stupid. Why did they do that? Why did they say that?" When if somebody, including them, in their own circle were going through those same things, they'd be there to defend them and offer a helping hand and uplift them. But somebody else on the internet going through that exact same situation, they, just feel the need to comment and have some words just because that's who they are as a person. Um, I was talking last week, and I briefly touched on, the people and the communication and the words that they use, and how sometimes people don't realize that um, when they go to actually offer a helping hand or go to scold someone, I'm gonna put scold
Right.
because that's what it is. They're up there scolding them like they're a child. But they throw out this comment like we're all adults, so they knew what was about to happen, when in reality they didn't know what was about to happen. They thought that they would be able to come, ask a question, and hopefully somebody would offer some help or a kind word, right? But you think, oh, we're all adults here, so we should just jump on their head and scold them for being adult and not knowing how to handle the situation. I feel like nobody really knows how to handle the situation unless you've been prepared for the situation. You never know how you're going to respond in the
There is
same
no
exact
manual.
situation. You can talk about what you would have done, but until you're in the
Mhm.
situation, you don't know what you're going to do. Like
Yes.
you're just imagining what you would have done, right? So you're like, if that would have happened to me, I would have did bop, 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 bop. But then you become and you get in that situation and you're stuck and you're like, well, I didn't ever expect this to happen to me. And now I'm in the same situation and I don't know what to do. And maybe you just small percentage that you might think back to that person that you threw all that shade and hate towards, that went through that exact same situation.
Absolutely. I feel like people just talk without thinking sometimes. Like just because it was obvious to you doesn't mean it was obvious to that person. You're right. We behave based on our prior experiences, based on the things that people have taught us to expect. And when we're in a new situation, we don't know. And a lot of times we're fighting, falling into old behavior patterns because we know what to predict in that situation. So the choices you see in someone else's situation are not always the things that they see for themselves when they're in it. When you're knee deep in all those emotions, you don't think logically. You can't predict what's going to happen next.
Absolutely, you can't. Emotion sometimes will get the best of you, right? But that's where that self-awareness comes in, knowing your triggers and knowing whether to step away, knowing whether you can communicate effectively in that type of situation is very, very, very important. And so that's why, wanted to continue this conversation of talking about communication, because I know we talked about communication last week, but with a different topic. And I feel like this topic, like words matter, and especially words that are communicated through text, right? Because there is no tone,
Mm-mm.
there's no feeling. You can't hear the feeling. Like you were like, hear the feeling. You can like see the feeling right with people, but you can also hear the feeling. Like even in a phone conversation, you can hear
Yeah.
the feeling. You can hear the tone, but when you are typing, you really have to be very, very aware of what you're typing and how,
Mhm.
because it will come through and come across in the wrong manner than you intended it to. And a lot of times I'm sitting there erasing and rewriting things because I'm like, oh no, that's going to come off wrong. Oh no, that's going to come off. And so I'm sitting there going back and forth because I know that because a person cannot hear my tone or hear my emotion, that it might come off wrong. And so a lot of times I just send an audio message because because I'm like, this is not going to come across right in a text written message. It's just not going to. I need to send a text message or I need to call this person. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've gotten really aware of that because I've received so many messages where I had to respond like, did you mean this way? Because this is how it came across, and I'm not sure how to respond because I don't know what the energy behind this was. Not in those words, but just responding to people saying, "Okay, did you mean this way? Because this is what I think now. Because you, you actually sent that back to me. I mean, you sent that to me, and we talked about that a little bit last week about the what is it called? The
Communication.
shopper, right? The shopper who sent the message to me, and I was like,
Yep.
what? And, and then when talking to the shopper later, I actually saw the message later that she sent back because I just avoided the thread because I was protecting my peace and I didn't feel like dealing with it. But I saw it a little later, and she said, "No, I didn't mean it that way." She said, I didn't mean to. She said my message wasn't. It wasn't disrespectful or catty or whatever I said to her. She
That was
said
not the intent.
it wasn't meant that way. But I was like, that was the only way you could take that sentence because that sentence just couldn't be interpreted any other way. And, of course, I didn't respond back, but it was just the thought of it because in my mind, I was like, she doesn't think that that was, disrespectful or catty. But what she said was because there's no other way to interpret the sarcasm. That's what I told her. I
Okay.
said she was being sarcastic. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "No, I wasn't being sarcastic. I'm sorry you took it that way." And I'm like, but there was it was like a clear cut sentence. You know what I mean? So in my mind, I was like, if it wasn't meant to be sarcastic, then you probably should have said the sentence in a completely different manner because there was no other way to interpret it.
But
So
I
being
think
able to just,
I think that communication goes through filters though. Like, the person on the receiving end, you're filtering it by like your experiences and past things you've had. And I think it also takes a lot of maturity to be able to ask somebody, well, okay, what I heard was this. Is this what you meant? Or whatever. So it's always good if we have a misunderstanding, if we can like ask the clarifying questions before we just go off. Like,
mm,
okay, did you really mean it this way or whatever? Because, I'll be honest, I had a supervisor once and I would say one thing and she would completely like, hear something else. And I would have to ask her based upon her reaction, well, wait, what did you hear me say? And she would say something, and I'm like, no, that's not what I said. What I said was, and then we had to go back and reiterate. But there's so many also misunderstandings that go on just because of this filtering process and because people aren't asking like, hey, did you mean it this way? And I'm guilty. I haven't always asked if they meant like that. I just kind of wait and see what the next sentence is going to be and try to use the context clues, which may or may not be right. But I do usually kind of give you a few opportunities to like see if my understanding was correct or not.
yeah, yeah. So
That's
the
true. You were
context
asking
clues.
about
That's
clarifying
funny.
questions. That's really helpful.
Yeah, that is so funny. What if they didn't actually respond? What if they didn't send another message?
Open
Well,
to interpretation.
yeah, I mean,
Tiffany was like,
unless I go back and ask them, hey, did you mean this or whatever? Then we just may never know. I mean, and
Tiffany said, I just might not respond back, and we just might just have an open conversation that never gets resolved.
because then it depends on how important it is, like, okay, is it really
Yeah.
important for me to get this clarity or not? Or can we move along? Or, do I need to speak to this person again? Maybe I don't,
Yeah. She said, do I
maybe
need
I
to
don't need
speak
to
to this
waste my
person
energy
again?
because, I
That
don't
is
like to
true,
waste
though.
my
That's
words.
funny, though. That is so funny. She said, "Do I need to speak to this person again? Is it that serious?" Yeah. So I like I like that. It's funny, but one of the things that I heard though that you said was dealing with like actually being mature enough, right, to go back and ask them did they mean it a certain type of way, and then what you just said by waiting for those context clues to see, okay, let me just wait and see what else they say to see if maybe I, mistaken what they were saying, right?
And I have to
But
say
no,
that
that's funny.
sometimes I've said something and someone's reacted in a way that I didn't think they were, I was like, oh, okay, what caused this? And I'm like, okay. And then I will be the one to ask, well, hey, is everything okay? Like, did you get something more from what I said? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to be that person too.
But it sounds like for me, like from what you're saying, that you really do take your self-awareness very, very seriously. You watch behavior, you watch responses in order to make sure that you are well understood, which is not what many people do. Many people are really quick to just take offense and take it personally, and then like they go off on a tangent. Now it's like, I need to defend myself and prove to you that I'm not worthless and stupid and all these things, but that's not even what was being communicated. So the fact that you take your self-awareness very seriously, whether you're on the receiving end or you said something and somebody else received it differently than you intended, that's important. I think that's something that we should all try to incorporate as much as we can.
Yeah, because I'm one of
Yeah.
those people. I mean what I say what I mean. So do not add any extra interpretation or anything else. If I didn't
Right.
say it, then that's
Yes,
not
I
it.
like that because
But
I
it
am that
happens.
same type of person. I do not leave anything open to interpretation. And that's what I think too, like being direct, where I'm not leaving open gaps. And I know we talked about the difference between um, being petty and actually just, why did you smile, Tiffany? I
Because I
saw
can
the
be petty
smile.
too. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm
Oh,
not
petty.
sometimes. Like I mean, I think we all have that
Gosh, if we could all just
capability.
be petty, there'd be so much backlash though.
It just
Yeah,
depends.
so when we're talking about words mattering, right? So there's some times when I end a conversation by not saying anything at all because I feel like the conversation is actually going nowhere and it's just a back and forth conversation of nothingness, like literally nothingness. So the words that are being said don't lead to a solution. And that's what I mean by nothingness. So being able to say, okay, this conversation's not going nowhere. I'm not going to respond. And then sometimes I'll just be like, silence.
I
And
mean,
then,
silence is a form of communication.
It is,
Like not
absolutely
saying
is,
anything,
absolutely is.
has meaning as well. So,
It was
yeah,
my mom's favorite form of communication when I was in trouble. She just goes, she ignored me, and I'm like, oh my god, now I gotta go apologize. I gotta figure out what I did wrong. Like, don't ignore me, please.
yeah. So I think that, sometimes you just have to be silent. And I think that really goes out to those people who really are just sitting there waiting to say something negative. Sometimes just keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know, maybe you're going through something, maybe you need some help yourself, and it's making you feel better to tear somebody else down who is out here asking for help. Like that is a thing. So, what I want us to do right now as we're moving through, I do want to say I'm going to introduce myself, who I am, what I do, as well as give one tip, right, um, for effective communication, but also just one tip for being able to get to your best self, elevate to evolve. So, one of the things that I'm Kamisha Muhammad, I'm a certified behavior consultant, and I call myself a mommy's results coach, right? I focus on helping moms to maximize their potential time and their money so that they can spend time with family. And we do that by being intentional and authentic in creating a plan to execute our vision of the life that we want to live and have choices to create a legacy for our families, right? And in being a behavior consultant, I focus very highly on paying attention, right? I pay attention to all the cues, the body language, the words, the tone, the emotion in it. I pay attention to everything. And I do that because I really want to understand. I'm not a person who just talks to talk. I don't do that. I don't have enough energy to talk, especially with small children. Just don't have that energy. So I talk with intention, I listen with intention, and I deliver a message with intention. So, one of the things that I want to offer, two things. One thing for yourself is to take the time to focus on you and who you are and who you want to be. And think about the steps it'll take from getting from who you are right now to where you actually want to be. And if you're actually taking those steps, if you're sitting within yourself and thinking about it and taking action and intentional action on getting there. That's one thing when we're talking about becoming our best selves, is just being aware of who you are and where you want to be and what's going on around you, right? The second thing that I want to offer within that is to take time for yourself. So take some time to decompress, relax, and just have nothing, right? Because we need those moments in time of nothingness in order to just get really, really, really aware, right? Because in those moments of time where you're taking 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there to just be, and when I say just be, I mean just exist. When you're taking that time, you're able to relax your mind and let thoughts drift in that will help you on your path. And those thoughts that drift in are usually very clear. You gain more clarity because you don't have anything fogging up your thoughts, fogging up your mind, fogging up your energy, fogging up your emotions. There's nothing there but nothingness. So taking that time to find a space or a place, right, where you can take a drive, take a walk, take a jog, take a bike ride, or a place you can sit in your house and just do and be nothing to get clarity so that the thoughts that come in are very clear, right? And then the final part of that is to take the time to build positivity into your life. And the way you do that is by taking intentional action to cause the positivity to happen. And the way you cause the positivity to happen is by being positive yourself. And in those moments when you can be petty, or when you can offer some negativity, let's turn it around and offer some positivity, because it's very, very important in order to start building that habit of positivity to elevate your awareness and elevate your thinking so that you can evolve and become a better version of yourself every single day. It is so very important. And I feel like a lot of times we don't take that space to build that clarity into our lives. And I started doing it and I felt so much better, where I just took moments to just be and exist and not have anything else going so that I can get clearer thoughts and more clarity on where I am, where I want to be, what I'm doing to get myself there, and how I'm affecting change through being positive, and how I could cause um, negative impact by being negative, and which one did I want to do. And I definitely don't want to be negative. I can't be negative. I feel so horrible. It's not built into who I am to actually be negative and do the wrong thing and treat people wrong. And so I just want everyone to realize that it all starts with you and you focusing on you. So that's my spiel. So I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Rasathi to let you know who she is, what she does, and give you a tip on um, words mattering in communication.
Thanks, Kamisha. I am Rasati. I'm actually based out in Singapore, and I'm an emotional intelligence coach. So I talk about feelings all day long. So when we talk about, communication and how people relate to each other and how you feel after those communications, it really does matter to me. And I know it really affects people. So something that I want to leave you guys with is the fact that I deal with a lot of people who are suicidal, who are depressive, and it matters so much, a kind word every so often. So when you have a chance to have interactions with someone, be aware, be fully present, and realize that, you know, you might be the hand of God to them. You might be that one encouraging word, that one encouraging interaction that reminds them that there is some hope in humanity left, rather than proving them right, that they aren't seen, that they aren't important, that they're not good enough. Don't reiterate those things if you can help it, because I feel like all those good intentions come back tenfold to you at some point. There have been so many moments where I wasn't sure of myself, and I was looking for some kind of encouragement from the universe. We all look for signs, right? So who knows? You might be that sign for somebody. So take all of your interactions seriously, because you might be the hand of God to somebody. That's my tip for elevating yourself and elevating the community around you, so that we can all evolve to become better versions of ourselves.
All right, thank you. And that was such a beautiful word, because you could be that one person, that one
That
word,
big
that one
difference.
thought that really helps somebody else. I love it. Now we will have Miss Tiffany Mosley Kolar to tell us who she is, what she does, and give us her tip on effective communication and words mattering.
Okay, y'all. So I have an online jewelry boutique, and I encourage women to live life beautifully, internally and externally, and to operate in their gifts and go after their purpose. If I could give a tip, I would say to do the work that you need to do within, so that when you're speaking to other people, you're not necessarily spewing out that negativity, and that you're leaving people better off than they were when you found them. So just doing the work to make yourself the best version of yourself that you can be, and realizing that at any time, if you're not happy with the person that you are or who you've been, you can always change it around the next second going forward. Your past does not have to dictate your future. You can change the
Yes.
story, write a different script.
I love that. I
I
love
love
that.
that,
Your
Tiffany.
Thank
past
you.
does not dictate your future. You can be who and whatever you want to be as long as you work on yourself. I love it. And I have to do this because I cannot just let her grades pass and say she owns an online jewelry boutique. No,
Oh,
ma'am. No,
No,
what,
ma'am.
man.
what else
All
is it?
right. So let's tell us the name of your jewelry boutique and the type of accessories and jewelry you carry. Don't just break it, ain't your everybody else's jewelry.
You're right. You're right. Okay. So the name of the boutique is Audrey, Grace, and Izzy. And because I realized that as women, we're each very different people, um, I actually curate three different types of jewelry for three different types of women. So Audrey is going to be that classical minimalist type of dresser. Grace is going to be the lady who loves her pearls and ruffles and floral. She's the one that's like over the top, all things feminine. And then there is Izzy, who is the rebel, the statement maker, the edgy one who's wearing all those bold pieces. So yeah, that's what it is. And again, the boutique is just a way for you to adorn yourself on the outside with who you really are on the inside. So even though I sell jewelry, I am much more interested in the woman who's coming to me and buying those pieces.
That's
I
very
love
cool. And
I
from what I
love
understand, Miss Tiffany, these are one of a kind pieces, right?
I won't go as far as saying one of a kind, but I do have very limited amounts. So I might stock like maybe five or so pieces. And I do truly believe that specific pieces are for specific people. So sometimes it's like the jewelry whisperer.
Very
All
cool.
right. I love it. I love it. So definitely join us back here every Sunday at 8 p.m. for Elevate to Evolve, where we'll be having these conversations around topics that need to be had. And most of the time, people are not open to having the conversation. So we're just going to have the conversations, and
You'll
we're going
start
to
it.
keep it really open and come and join in on it. And you can find us all online, right? And what I'm going to do is put it down in the description where you can find everyone. You can find us online, and we all have some really great things coming up. And that I think that you would definitely definitely want to grab hold of. So that'll be down in the description as well. I like to thank you ladies for coming in and hopping on the podcast. And again, come and join us, because we're really here to have those open conversations with you around topics that really matter. Any final words, ladies, before we depart?
Thank you
None
so
for
much for
me.
having us, Kamisha.
Right. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me.
All right. Well, come back and join us next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to keep having these conversations, and we really want you to join in. So make sure, come in, hop in the comments, talk to us, and we'll talk back. We love talking to you. So we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.